makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part.
I'm gonna start this video by, first of all, thanking my viewers for pushing the numbers of this very, very young, less than 3-month-old channel, which I am incredibly pleased. I've seen studies that show that on average it takes about 3 months to get to 100 subscribers, and we're already closing in on 300, so that's really good. Having said that, I have a complaint against my audience, that is, you all. And the reason is, I made a video on Cuba and the embargo, which I thought was a very well-researched and nuanced piece, talking about complex issues of international law. And it got 20 views. As I speak now, it has 20 views. On the other hand, every Jimmy Dore video that I make gets 100 views on the first day. How is that? I wanted to make a channel where I would discuss, profound, nuanced issues of politics, international affairs, and economics, and occasionally do videos on stupid idiots like Jimmy Dore. But now all of you are forcing me to basically do videos about Jimmy Dore and occasionally do videos on smart, nuanced issues like politics and international affairs and economics. Now, as a young channel, I need to follow my market. So here we go with another Jimmy Dore video. Damn you all. So Jimmy Dore was on Tucker Carlson last night. Was it last night or 2 nights ago? And this is not surprising. He's frequently been on Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson is basically the official forum for every leftist who hates the left more than they hate the right. Looking at you, Glenn Greenwald. And the reason is obvious. There is a commonality in terms of certain discourse and talking points between the populist far right and the populist far left. And this is very problematic. I've argued this before in previous videos. The left should not think that just because we have certain issues in common with the right, that necessarily means that the world that we want is the same. And that is particularly with regards to criticism of liberal centrists, the establishment, the democratic establishment, or the mainstream corporatist media. Like, just because we agree that we hate these things, that we're opposed to them, does not mean that our respective opposition will lead us to the same place. And if you, I probably want to do a more detailed video just on this topic. In the meantime, I strongly suggest that you look at a debate that Nathan Robinson of Current Affairs had with Glenn Greenwald on this issue. And I totally side with Nathan Robinson on this point. Like, we cannot be allies with people who have such a completely different view of the world we want to live in, just because we share certain commonalities on a few certain issues. That sadly are issues that are greatly amplified. And I think that is the reason why Tucker Carlson has been so effective in this sense, and why so many leftists like Jimmy Dore see Tucker Carlson as the only outlet among the mainstream media who will listen to these points, because it's a benefit for his side. That's what people like Jimmy Dore don't realize. And I personally have no issue whatsoever with people going on Fox News or going on Tucker's show. None whatsoever. If for whatever reason I was invited to Fox News, I would totally go. But you can't go to Fox News and not call them out for all the shit that they do. You can't go on Tucker Carlson's show and not call him out for his white supremacy dog whistling and for his kind of anti-vax rhetoric, which is incredibly damaging and leads to people dying. That's a fact. So Jimmy Dore, when he goes on Tucker Carlson, or Glenn Greenwald, when he goes on Tucker Carlson, never, ever, ever calls him out on these things. They just broadly agree on everything, and it gives a false impression. And it's creating these communities among the left, which are now essentially more concerned about agreeing with Tucker Carlson, and fighting against elements of the left establishment, so to speak, which isn't really a left establishment, but without realizing the danger of the right essentially hijacking this eventually and winning elections. That's the thing. You can't agree with the populist far right on issues that will get them elected. That's as simple as I can narrow it down. So, enough talk. Let's watch Jimmy Dore on Tucker Carlson show. And I only saw this video like very quickly yesterday, so I don't have any responses actually prepared. So let's see.
The conversation on the left revolves almost exclusively around identity, which is, in other words, me. Narcissism is about me. Yeah. But you kept talking about economics. That used to be the central conversation on the left, or in America, actually. Yeah. Why?
Jimmy Dore doesn't talk much about economics. That's a fact. I mean, aside from his lobbying for the Force the Vote campaign, I don't think he speaks much about economics. Not nearly as much as what he usually talks about, which is basically echoing all the kind of anti-US imperialism talking points from the gray zone, and shitting on the Young Turks, which seems like half his videos lately involve.
Why no more? Because the establishment has learned how to co-opt identity politics to put the brakes on economic progress and justice.
By the way, that is true, and I want to be clear, even though I thoroughly despise Jimmy Dore, I have no problem whatsoever agreeing with him, with whatever he says in this video. That is actually true.
So the joke I do, so if you want to help, I would say if you want to help black people, nothing would help them more than free college, student loan relief, and Medicare for all, and a living wage. You want to help them, that would be the way to help them. But Joe Biden comes in, does none of those things, but he makes Juneteenth a holiday.
So there's an element of class reductionism that I don't agree with here. There are specific issues affecting the African American community and other minorities, women specifically, that are not necessarily addressed with economic issues. So while I do agree with his kind of broader point that all these things will have more of an effect on their lives and livelihoods than this kind of superficial establishment wokeism, I thoroughly agree with that point. The way he phrased it made it sound a bit more class reductionist, and I think we really need to emphasize that point. Like, class reductionism is very limited, because all the economic policy will get you to a certain place, but there are other issues that need to be addressed specifically related to why certain minorities are disadvantaged relative to others. It's not just economics. That's basically my point.
So do you understand what I'm talking about?
Oh, I do understand.
So it's all signals, but there's no substance. We're signaling that we want to help the minority community, but we're not actually helping them.
So again, I agree 100% with that.
So that's what identity politics is. It's a big diversion. And the joke I say...
So this is where I don't agree with him. So there is a way in which identity politics is being pushed by certain establishment channels, and especially corporations, that have basically perverted what the original intention of it was. So what he's trying to do here is he's basically pointing out the very real cases in which identity politics actually does a disservice to the people it's supposed to help, and then framing it into an argument that identity politics overall is useless. And that's really the danger, because that's when you're entering into right-wing territory. That's when you stop being just, oh, I'm opposed to the way establishment politicians promote wokeness. I'm opposed to like the Robin DiAngelo style of white fragility rhetoric and things like that, which is only basically looking to make money for consultants like him. Her. That is what we should be opposed to. But he wants all identity politics gone, which is a right-wing talking point, basically.
You know, if it was 1860, the Democrats would be bragging about their first transgendered slave owner. And so what I'm trying to tell people is that when you vote for them, when you vote for somebody inside the Democratic Party, no matter what they say, no matter what they believe, they're going to go along with Nancy Pelosi. And Nancy Pelosi goes along with Goldman Sachs and Raytheon. So when you're voting for someone inside the Democratic Party, you're voting for Goldman Sachs and Raytheon because they are not standing up to those people.
That is utter bullshit, like absolute utter bullshit. And again, this is how he's basically wanting to turn everyone against every single member of the Democratic Party. Like in Jimmy Dore's world, there is no space whatsoever for members of the Democratic Party who are further to the left of the establishment line. Because what he wants is 100% basically obedience to his perspective from these leftist elements. I'm talking about the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, basically the squad, the Bernie Sanders, etc. The moment that they seem to agree on anything that the establishment wants, then they're traitors, complete traitors. Like there is no space in his mind for the fact that these people, while definitely there is a lot to criticize, I do think that a lot of them have made statements that genuinely seem to suggest a greater willingness to appease the party rather than oppose it. You know, when AOC said that Joe Biden has exceeded the expectations of progressives, but then Bernie Sanders has also done that. I mean, there was a really good article, I forget from what site, that basically was describing Bernie Sanders as a very pragmatic gradualist, and to some extent there is some truth to that. Like Bernie Sanders isn't really a kind of politician that wants to tear the whole system down and build it up again. And there's a space for everything. I don't want to give the impression that I'm 100% in line with what AOC and the squad always say or what they do. I do think that on many issues they could be doing more. But for Jimmy Dore, there is no space whatsoever for that. You are either with him or without him. And so it doesn't matter that AOC might disagree on most issues with Pelosi. It's the fact that she will occasionally cave in or appease her that is enough for Jimmy Dore to brand her as essentially also part of the establishment. So what he wants to do, and this is very effective on the internet, and you can see this among Jimmy Dore's fan base, is this with me or against me mentality, a completely binary view of politics. You are either good or evil. There is no middle ground. And this is beneficial to him because as long as he can always position himself as leftier than the leftmost mainstream politician, then he can brag about it. That's his brand. That's his persona. That's what gets him likes and clicks. And I rest assured, I absolutely guarantee you that the moment that AOC, Bernie Sanders, and the squad move to the left as far as where he is, he's going to move even more. You know, he will never, ever, ever be satisfied with anything that they do, because then he loses his appeal. He loses his brand as the one guy who is more to the left than everyone else.
So the idea that we have progressives inside the Democratic Party, it's actually more deleterious to the progressive movement to have them there. Why is that, Jimmy? Because it gives people a false impression that there's somebody in government fighting for you, that there's one of the parties that are kind of on your side, and they aren't. And the quicker people realize that both parties are not on their side, they only serve the oligarchy. We are, in fact, in an oligarchy. Your democracy was stolen way before Trump. Until that happens, we won't ever have real change.
But what about Ocasio-Cortez?
So I should add that Jimmy Dore has always pushed for a third party. In his worldview, there is no space for the left to effectively capture the Democratic Party, despite the fact that it nearly happened twice in 2016 and 2020 if Bernie had won, because those were very narrow defeats, very narrow. And he, in his mind, he just doesn't see the possibility of that ever happening again.
He's on Instagram.
Ocasio-Cortez campaigned on a floor vote on Medicare for all. And she campaigned on creating what she called a ruckus, meaning you have to stop being polite. This is a quote. You have to stop being polite. We tried being polite, and it got us nowhere. And it wasn't until we started acting out and speaking impolitely that we even created the circumstances for change. That's what she tweeted. So I'm just doing what she said. So I started to put heat on people like AOC and Rashid Tlaib and Ro Khanna and all the Justice Democrats in the squad.
But they have changed the narrative. Like, it's incredible how he completely forgets about the fact that there are issues being discussed in US politics today that would have been unthinkable before 2016. And it's largely because of people like Bernie Sanders. It's largely because of people like the Squad, who are, at this point, perhaps incapable of making change on their own. But they have definitely made enough of a fuss that these issues are discussed. I mean, do you actually think if the Squad was not in power, there would be any discussion whatsoever about like a $15 minimum wage? Do you think that if Bernie Sanders had never run or didn't exist, that there would be a discussion on Medicare for all? You gotta be kidding me. I mean, yeah, it's fine to think that they haven't done enough. But he wants to turn them into your enemy. And that is so despicable, I think. Because let me tell you, when his imaginary third party is going to win an election in the US, take a guess when that's going to happen. How long are you going to have to wait? Here, this is merely an issue of political pragmatism. How long are you going to wait for a third party to arise in the US to challenge any of the two big parties and enact the change that you want? How long is that going to take? Versus, how long is it going to take to create a critical mass of people like Bernie Sanders, like AOC, and all the people that follow them to make change within the Democratic Party? Which is more feasible, Jimmy Dore?
To force the vote, and they said I was committing violence against them with my words. That's how scared they got.
Were you?
That's how scared. You really telling them to do what they ran on? That's violence? That's how afraid they were. And all the things. So they had people write hit pieces on me in the Daily.
Jimmy Dore is such an egomaniac. He must think that they all like lose sleep over what Jimmy Dore is going to say about them. You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. Like, dude, it's fine that you have like 800 something subscribers on YouTube. If you actually think that gives you like any sort of political influence over people, you are an idiot. You are an absolute idiot. And I'll give you the best example of this. There was a primary race in California last year, and Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, which has 5 million subscribers, literally anyone in the online left ecosystem knows who Cenk Uygur is, whether you agree with him or not. 5 million followers. And the largest online news channel in existence to basically promote Cenk Uygur's bid for the primary. And he lost to an establishment Democrat. An establishment corporate Democrat. And it wasn't even close. Like, he got his ass handed back to him on a silver platter. So tell me, Jimmy Dore, how these politicians are so frightened by you when someone with 5 or 6 times your popularity couldn't make a dent in the political system.
New York Magazine, Newsweek, BuzzFeed, they tried to shut me down and squelch me. They made me trend on Twitter negatively, but they couldn't shut me up, and they couldn't stop me. And they don't know what to do with me because...
Oh my god. I froze it like in the perfect frame for that statement. Like he's gotta be insane to think that they're all terrified of him. Like insane.
Again, all the usual, they have Wikipedia putting smears on me that I can't get rid of. CNN's calling me. It's unbelievable what's going on. Just a comedian, a pothead comedian in his garage.
In his $1 million LA home garage, I should add. He's a fucking liar. He loves to pretend that he's like, this working class hero. He has a lot of money. He will never admit it, but he has a lot of money. And if you don't believe me, just Google Jimmy Dore's house, and you will find out. It's probably a very nice garage. And yeah, he's just crazy. He's absolutely crazy. The worst thing about this is that since the grand majority of Tucker Carlson's audience is right wing, they're actually conservatives, they will see this and they will, since they believe anything that appears on this show, they're just going to see this and be like, wow, the left is like destroying itself. Look at this brave guy saying these things about identity politics that I also agree with. And the left is like wanting to take him down. And oh my god, like all that just reinforces all their previous beliefs, on cancel culture or whatever. Just basically whatever stereotype they might have of the left is confirmed by Jimmy Dore on this show, acting like the entire world is conspiring against him because he's that influential and that popular. Unbelievable.
What you can do when you want to tell the truth inside journalism and politics, and you can create a ruckus. And I did. And so now everybody sees that those people are fakers and they're corrupt. And the reason why I say they're corrupt is not because they take corporate money and do the bidding of corporations, but they're doing the bidding of their own career, right? Their own self-dealing.
Yeah.
So if I go along with the establishment, I'm going to get a book deal, I'm going to get speaking fees, and I'm going to be in Congress for at least 5 years, and then I get a pension for the rest of my life. That is corrupt, and that's why they're not pushing back. Because Nancy Pelosi could come in and crush you. Hey, we'll fund somebody in a primary to your left, just like she did to Joe Crowley, AOC, right? So that's what they're all afraid of. They're afraid of the power of the establishment.
What the hell did he just say? He's actually saying that he thinks Pelosi is gonna like primary people from the left? Are you kidding me? Literally everything that the Democratic establishment has been doing is threatening to primary or actively supporting primary opponents. They did that to AOC, by the way. Or just pour money into the campaigns of basically establishment candidates when they're running against a populist candidate. That's what they've been doing to Nina Turner, for example, in Ohio. Her opponent, whose name I forget, has gotten tons of money from PACs, and she's gotten endorsements from Hillary Clinton and other establishment figures. That's all they do. They make such much bigger efforts to derail actual progressive candidates than they do fighting the right. So where does this guy get it that Pelosi is going to primary the people that she doesn't like from the left? Who is no? Where are you going to find candidates like more left than AOC that will get an endorsement? Like, how on earth is if you find someone who's more left than AOC, you actually think that they're gonna like receive an endorsement from Nancy Pelosi? You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. This is batshit insane. Wrong button.
Taking away what little power and that they have in Congress.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey.
Yep, that was Jimmy Dore on the Tucker Carlson show. And I repeat, I have no objection whatsoever. Leftists going on the Tucker Carlson show or on Fox News in general, insofar as they call them out for all their misinformation, lies, white supremacy, anti-science attitudes, whatever. And he could have framed it. He could have taken it there. He could have, started a discussion on identity politics, said some of the things where I think he was kind of on the right path, and then move on to kind of how Tucker Carlson obsesses over anything identitarian, anything cultural, and uses it to promote essentially racism. The criticism of critical race theory, things like that. But he didn't do that. He instead went and tried to make it seem that the far left and the far right agree on most things, when in fact the world that Tucker Carlson wants could not be further from the one that any self-respecting leftist would want. And before I finish this video, I just want to show an example of how you can actually go to the media and call them out on their bad journalism. And this was the case of Michael Wolff, who you may have heard of. He's an author. He published a couple of books on Trump, including Fire and Fury, which was a massive bestseller. He went on CNN and spoke to Brian Stelter, and he called out the terrible journalism of CNN. And this was brilliant. This was a delight to watch.
I think the media has done a terrible job on this. I think you yourself, while you're a nice guy, you're full of sanctimony. You become part of one of the parts of the problem of the media. You come on here and you have a monopoly on truth. You know exactly how things are supposed to be done. You are one of the reasons people can't stand the media. Sorry.
You're cracking me up.
It's your fault.
That's such a fake smile and fake laugh. Incredible.
So what should I do differently, Michael?
Don't talk so much. Listen more. People have genuine problems with the media. The media doesn't get the story right. The media exists in its own bubble.
That's true. I agree.
You got to stop. I mean, that last segment that I just had to listen to, of all of the people saying the same old stuff. Also, you're incredibly repetitive. It's week after week. I mean, you're the flip side of Donald Trump. Fake news, and you say virtuous news.
That was basically, it wasn't just week after, it was 4 years of a Trump presidency in which all they spoke about was Trump and Russiagate and all these other issues. That's all they were concerned about.
We just figure out what is real.
I mean,
I'm listening.
Well, figuring out what is real is not so easy, and right. Most people don't want to turn to Brian Stelter to tell us what's real. I'm sorry.
Well, then why'd you bother coming on CNN a few times this week?
I'm a book salesman.
That was brilliant. In the case of the liberal media like MSNBC and CNN, it's not so much the sort of direct fake news that they spread the way that Fox does. It's more in terms of lying by omission, in that they only feed you the news that they want you to hear. And that does affect ultimately your worldview. And, there's been huge issues in the last couple of weeks alone that they have not covered. They have not covered at all, for example, that one of the main witnesses against Julian Assange admitted to lying. They have not covered the fall from grace of Michael Avenatti, who was on these channels every single day at the peak of Russiagate, and now he's going to jail. All these things, they just don't cover. And they spend like days on end talking about Jeff Bezos going to space. So, yeah, that is how you go to a network and call them out in their face. And Jimmy Dore had a great opportunity to do that, and he didn't do it. Instead, he chose to make it seem that the left and the populist right have more in common than they don't. And that is despicable. So, if you like this video, please like, please share. More importantly, please subscribe. And please watch my non-Jimmy Dore videos as well. I like making Jimmy Dore videos. They're quite funny in all the wrong ways. But yeah, I don't want to just become an anti-Jimmy Dore channel. So please watch all the other ones. Thank you.